really an honor to be here today. As he was saying, my grandfather worked here for a very long time. I've kind of grown up within these hallowed walls, and it's quite an honor. As he said, my name is Dr. Mom, and I'm going to be presenting to you on something that's very near and dear to my heart. It's a book I've been working on, Thou Shalt Be Happy, a psychological perspective on the 10 Commandments and how they can help the modern man find happiness. So without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. Greg already gave me a very nice intro. Yes, I am a clinical psychologist. I specialize in the treatment of PTSD, anxiety disorders, as well as grief and depression. But who am I? That's such a deep question to ask within these walls. We are all so much more than our titles, right? Outside of being a counselor, I love to read, I love to travel. I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, I'm a wife. I'm still working and growing on who I am, but at least right now, this is kind of a concise idea of who I am. So it always is important to ask, why write something? I asked myself that question, and so I just wanted to give you a concise idea about what is Thou Shalt Be Happy all about. And it's really a simple idea. Thou Shalt Be Happy is about looking at the original 10 Commandments and seeing them from a new and modern angle, all in the pursuit of finding happiness. So instead of seeing the 10 Commandments as rules that need to be followed, I try to explore their deeper meaning with just a little bit of critical thinking skills. I extracted one coping skill out of each commandment. And it's going to be those skills that I will be talking to you today about. And so now, after doing all of this, I now see the 10 Commandments as these 10 new coping skills. And after this presentation, hopefully so will you. So again, why write Thou Shalt Be Happy? Because somebody needed to. Sometimes us healthcare professionals get really stuck on terms like evidence-based treatment and validated studies and all these other things. We forget about some of the basic things that maybe we've heard from our grandparents or our kindergarten teachers, or maybe we've been read to from ancient scriptures with these basic same ideas that companies are spending thousands of dollars on trying to find research on. I'll give you a really funny anecdote. A couple years ago, my job sent me on a flight to go learn these new coping strategies for the treatment of trauma. So I'm sitting there, and it's all interesting stuff. And they're like, all right, so the next coping skill that we're going to be talking about is honesty. I was like, honesty? I don't really know if I would call that a new coping skill. I'm pretty sure I've heard about this one before. But this realization that modern coping skills have been hidden in plain sight and in the 10 Commandments and elsewhere for centuries was pretty cool to me. And it also made me think, what else have us scientists possibly overlooked? So I've said this word a few times already about coping skills. Anybody know what a coping skill is? In short, it's anything that helps you tolerate, minimize, or deal with a stressor or a stressful situation. And in life, you can't have enough coping skills. Building a repertoire of coping skills is critical for living a happy life. And you know what? The 10 Commandments are full of helpful coping skills that can help you improve your life. Life is hard and complicated. And just like any other hard and complicated project, you're going to need multiple skills and tools to get the job done successfully. I'll give you another story. Several years ago, I was trying to put this painting up on a wall, and so I asked my husband, I was like, hey, can you go ask my mom for a hammer? And he was like, okay. So I went over to my mom, and he was like, hey, I need a hammer. And she's like, I have a saw. And my husband was like, that's great if I needed to cut something, but I need a hammer to get this job done. Needless to say, I did not get my picture hung that day. Why? Not because we didn't know what to do, but we didn't have the tools to get the job done. So my advice right up front is collect as many coping tools as you can. Collect as many skills as you can. It's going to make your life that much easier. And some of the coping skills that I'm going to be talking to you about today might seem a little hard or strange or too complicated, but I do encourage you to try, at least to try. Because if there's any one thing that I have learned so far in my training, is that if it's the hard thing to do, it's probably the right thing to do. And the reverse is true as well. If it's the easy thing to do, it's probably the wrong thing to do. And so without further ado, let's go ahead and dive in. This is probably a picture that's going to be very familiar to you. So here are the original 10 Commandments. If there's anybody out there, yes, I'm going to be using the Augustine version of the Commandments versus the Protestant. For no other reason, because I don't need Sister Elizabeth coming after me after all of the training that I have had. So I can touch base with you about the Protestant version as well if you're interested afterwards. But for today, in my book, is also going to be following the Augustine version. And then here are my new coping skills that I extracted and that we're going to be going over today. All right, so as we all know, the first commandment is, I'm the Lord your God, you will have no other gods before me. And so first of all, from a writer's perspective, this is a great first commandment. If I was writing the Bible, I would have done this one too. The reader of the commandments needs to accept this commandment as true in order for them to follow all of the other commandments. So right off the bat, they're saying, I am the only God. Any other rules or laws that you've heard from other gods, those didn't count, those aren't real. You need to accept this. I am the only one. It's a really great first commandment. However, this book is not exactly about what I think about the first commandments. It's about the skill that I pulled from, written between the lines from the commandment. And the coping skill that I get from this commandment is about the power and the importance of faith and belief in our lives. Faith, belief in anything, belief in a God as you know him. If you are a person who believes in God, God's karma, fate, the universe, you are already on an easier path to your happiness. And so why is that? So research has shown that religion and spirituality are generally associated with better mental health and tend to have a positive influence on a patient's overall quality of life. More research suggests that people who identify as religious tend to report better health and happiness, regardless of their religious affiliation or any other demographic that might be going on, as long as that religious piece is there. Other research found that greater spirituality and religion has been associated with several things, including, as you can see, lower levels of depression, lower levels of post-traumatic stress symptoms, and lower levels of suicide. Belief gives us meaning. It gives our suffering a purpose, and it makes life that much more precious, and our values more important. Belief and faith gives us rules to live by and structure for our everyday life. And it can also help with our sense of gratitude, which is something else I will be discussing later on in this presentation. So that's the skill, but how do I apply it in my everyday life? I'm going to be going over these practical skills with each commandment. So one idea is just to pray. Pray every day, maybe multiple times a day if you get a benefit from it. Meditate. Some people would even say that prayer and meditation are one and the same. They have a very grounding effect. They're very present-oriented, so it's going to help you in terms of anxiety especially. Spend more time in nature. Research your old religion or research a new one. Go to houses of worship and talk to faith leaders. If you have those questions, be curious. Seek out the answers that you're looking for. Exercise hope and faith in yourself and in others. And lastly, avoid cynicism and other forms of hopelessness. It's only going to take you further away from that elusive happiness. So the second commandment, I am the Lord your God, thou shalt not take my name in vain. This commandment is about so much more than just disrespecting the Lord's name. As a psychologist, I see that this commandment is advising us not only to not take the Lord's name in vain, but also to not take your name in vain, or your friend's name in vain, or your teacher's name in vain, or your parents' name in vain. Don't take anybody's name in vain. This commandment is encouraging us all to use kind language with others and ourselves. Proverbs 18:21 says, life and death is in the power of the tongue. And boy, is that true. The words we use are infectious, for better or for worse. So when you're calling yourself an idiot or a loser or any other negative evaluation term, you're taking yourself further away from happiness. When you're calling somebody else an idiot or a loser or other some type of negative word, you're taking them further away from their happiness. But when you call yourself great, lovable, smart, precious, you are paving your own yellow brick road for your happiness. Through our tongue, we have this godlike power of creating worlds and encouraging life or death. So why not make it a world filled with kindness, hope, and resiliency? And this is why the coping skill of kind language is so important. So what's the problem with unkind language? A lot. Humans primarily learn through instruction and language, right? We either watch our teachers or our parents, drive or fix a problem. They're like, oh, that happens. Or maybe we touch a cactus and we learn that it hurts. Or we watch somebody else touch a cactus and we learn that it hurts. Outside of modeling and instruction, language, right? We hear things, we speak things, we read things. Language is super important for our learning process. And so when we're learning unkind language, it's very insidious and it infects what we're learning. It's like evil propaganda. If we practice unkind language to ourselves, or we allow others to use unkind language to ourselves, like through verbal abuse, we will eventually learn to think those things about ourselves and eventually buy into it. Unkind words then bleed into our core beliefs. These are the core beliefs, the ideas about who we think we are. And so since the words we use build that foundation for our core beliefs, it will ultimately affect our belief structures and our perspective. And as we all know, our perspective on things paints our reality. So as I just mentioned, cruel words, I've been practicing that all week, cruel words will break us down. Kind, positive, and compassionate language sets ourselves up for resiliency in the face of defeat and create a world where we believe we are capable, intelligent, and good enough. So how to apply this skill in our everyday life? Number one, the simplest one, avoid negative language and positive language and encourage positive language as much as possible. Going back to that old phrase, if you don't have anything nice to say, don't say anything at all. Maybe there'll be another research study on that sometime soon to come. Number two, replace any negative word evaluation with something positive or at least neutral. Some therapists would call this cognitive restructuring work. One simple thing that I always encourage my patients to do in session for this is rather than allowing what I call a drive-by shooting of a negative word through our mind. Oh, I spilled the coffee, I'm such an idiot. Let me just clean it up and move on. Don't just let that happen. Oh my God, I'm such an idiot, I spilled the coffee. I'm not an idiot, I made a mistake. I'm a good, worthy person. Let's clean it up and move on. These things just take seconds, but they can really impact your mood for the rest of the day. So that's just one tip. Exercise great care with judgmental language and watch out for shoulds. Shoulds are again insidious, but shoulds are telling us to not accept what is. Whenever we're like, I shouldn't be this fat, I shouldn't be this single, I shouldn't be this bad of a driver. You are. And so now let's try to work on how, if that's not a place where you want to be, let's work on that. It shouldn't rain on my wedding day. It's raining on your wedding day. So what are we going to do about it? Let's solve the problem. And judgmental language. If we tend to use very negative judgmental terms for just simple things, we're sitting at our coffee shop, judging people. Those words, they're so XYZ. When we go in to evaluate ourselves, those words are going to be fresh in our vocabulary bank. And it's going to be the first words that we pull to talk about when we talk about ourselves. So all around, Try to avoid the shoulds and try to avoid judgmental language as much as possible. All right, eliminate absolute and catastrophic language. I could talk a whole hour on just this. Absolute and catastrophic language are what I kind of call my psychological weapons of mass destruction. These are our psychological WMDs that will destroy your day, your mood, and possibly your core beliefs about yourself. So in short, I'll try to keep it short, what is absolute language? Absolute language is whenever we give an idea of permanence to a situation. Always. Never. I'm never going to get that job. I'm never going to find a partner. Though I'm never going to graduate. All of those permanent things. My father used to say, if you want to be wrong a lot, use absolute language. But it's worse than just about being wrong. When we use absolute language, not only are we going to be wrong a lot, but it also robs us of any hope of change. And it sets us up for this self-fulfilling prophecy of defeat. If I'm never going to graduate, why should I go to that class? If I'm never going to find a partner, why go try? If I'm never going to fix this thing, why try? It's going to seep into that core belief about even doing anything about it, which again is going to keep you stuck. Moving on to catastrophic language, we do this a lot, almost unconsciously it seems. Some really popular terms that I hear a lot, FML, this is a disaster, worst day ever. Think of that classic 1980s Valley Girl talk. I'm hideous, he's the worst, I'm the worst, that restaurant's the worst. You know, you could put anything. Catastrophic language is very dramatic language. Okay, so here's the thing about catastrophic language. While it might earn you some extra social media points or some sympathy, it sets us up for being defeated. And it's very inaccurate, and so we're writing this very fantastical, non-real reality. This is a disaster. Chernobyl was a disaster. Worst day ever. 9/11 was one of the worst days ever. Your parents passing away, your child passing away. That would be the worst day ever. Starbucks getting your order wrong is not the worst thing ever. Your boyfriend breaking up with you, that's sad. It's not the worst thing ever. There's going to be another one, he's going to be better. So you don't even have to worry about that. Not only is catastrophic language inaccurate and it sets us up for feeling bad about ourselves, it also does one more thing. It takes away the power of the word itself. If a disaster is your hair got dyed a color shade off, if that's your threshold for a disaster, you're setting yourself up for a really hard life. If your threshold is, I got bad parking, my life is terrible, if that's your worst day, that's going to be a really rough day for you. So that's why catastrophic language, in short, is really, really bad. So please do, that would be part of my everyday applicable coping skills of applying this idea. Try to watch for that. Increase compassion and give more people the benefit of the doubt, including yourself, partially due to, I think, catastrophic and absolute language. We don't give people the benefit of the doubt, do we? You know, if somebody cuts us off, we're typically like, oh, they're a horrible driver. If our friend's late, oh, they're such a flake, they're always late. We never say, do we, oh wow, I hope that person's okay, they're driving really erratically. We never say, oh, I hope my friend's okay, she's a little late. I hope they're all right. No. And we don't do that for ourselves either. Oh, I'm always late. I'm such a kid. It's like, how about let's give us the benefit of the doubt? Maybe you didn't sleep well last night. You know? Maybe something's going on. Let's give ourselves the benefit of the doubt more. Lastly, eliminate exposure to negative material in TV, movies, books, the internet, anything. I can't tell you, sometimes I have people coming in like, oh gosh, I have such anxiety. Tell me about your sleeping patterns. I love watching that NCIS show before bed. And I'm like, okay, let's talk about this. The amount of material, again, because of the insidious nature of language, if we think it's just entertainment, our brain doesn't necessarily think so. And so we have to be very cautious about what we allow in. We have to be very vigilant with the amount of information and the quality of information that's seeping into all of our senses in a given day. Again, going back to some old world ideas, speak no evil, see no evil, hear no evil. So the third commandment, I am the Lord your God, thou shalt keep holy the Sabbath day. The coveting seal that I extracted from this is act on your beliefs. While I was writing this, I would call this the show me commandment. Believe it or not, acting on our beliefs is a very simple way of feeling better about ourselves. And so let's go ahead and dive into this. And partially one reason why acting on our beliefs makes us feel better about ourselves is due to this concept called cognitive dissonance. And so cognitive dissonance, in short, it's the mental discomfort experienced by a person who holds two or more contradictory beliefs, ideas, or values. And the discomfort is triggered by a situation in which a person's beliefs clash with their behaviors. Or if you have a certain belief and then you find something out new and these two beliefs clash. This is going to make us feel bad, feel uncomfortable. A really basic example of this is, let's say I want to believe that I'm an honest, good friend, and then I lied to my friend. Oh my goodness, I lied to my friend, that's wrong, what's wrong with me? Oh my gosh, she's gonna find out, should I tell her, but she's gonna be mad? That's a lot, like even in this demonstration, you can see like how bad and tense and anxious we become because we do something, an action, that clashed with a belief of ours. And so we're going to be talking a little bit more about how to survive all of that. There are three basic ways of surviving and getting through cognitive dissonance. One, making sure our beliefs and our actions match. So like in that situation, oh my God, I lied to my friend, what am I going to do? Like, you're going to own up to it. And you're going to go tell your friend, hey, you know what, I'm really sorry, I don't know, word vomit, I don't know why I said that, but this is the real thing, or I thought you'd be mad, so that's why I lied. Okay, I'm an honest person again. All right, I don't need to go any further. Or go ahead and change your belief about yourself. You know, maybe I'm just not an honest person and I'm cool with that. And then the cognitive dissonance will go away. I would encourage the other. But you know, in terms of cognitive dissonance, that's one way of getting rid of it. And as well as with the beliefs, sometimes we're going to be confronted with two different beliefs, and we have to prioritize, okay, which belief do I really connect with? And then making that sacrifice of like, all right, I'm going to put this one above it. All tough things, though, all tough things to do. So, acting on your beliefs, here are some benefits. Number one, acting on your beliefs will increase your sense of personal identity. Going back to that idea of being a friend and being honest. All right, that is who I am. I am a good friend. Cool. Another benefit, it increases our sense of personal integrity. Wow, you know, owning up to that lie was really tough, but I did it. I feel really proud about myself for that. I'm really a person with high integrity. That's increasing your self-esteem. And it also makes your life easier, believe it or not. Let's take this example. Let's say I'm a vegetarian and my friends want to go to a steakhouse. And so I didn't want to rock the boat, and so I go to the steakhouse with my friends, and they're all perusing the menu, like, oh my God, this looks great, this looks great, oh my God, I don't know what I'm going to order, this all looks so good, what am I going to do? I'm not going to have that problem, because I'm probably going to have the side salad, or maybe a soup. You know, if it's a steakhouse, there are probably not too many vegetarian options, or maybe I'm going with the dessert menu. But I'm not going to be bothered with all the other meat options because I don't eat meat. I'm not confronted with that. My life is easier, simplified. Going into something more intense, maybe we're a recovering addict and I don't want to drink any alcohol anymore. Or, okay, we're at the bar, what do we get? I get a soda. Done. Clearly that's more easier said than done, but in terms of making a decision, this is what it is. And you can apply this to any other behavioral confrontation that you might have. What do I do? Well, what do your values say you do? So here are some just practical ways of acting on your beliefs in your everyday life. You know, going back to the old saying, say what you mean and mean what you say. Follow through on promises and commitments, even when they are hard. You know, and go ahead and reward yourself. You know, we are all creatures that need to be nurtured. And so if we do follow through with something tough, go ahead and praise yourself. Give yourself a little pat on the back there. And also follow through on your commitments or your beliefs, even when no one is looking. Going back to the old saying, preach constantly, use words when necessary. St. Francis of Assisi. Okay, evaluate and challenge your belief system from time to time. This will help you stay committed to any beliefs and will keep you going strong in them. Evaluating your beliefs will also protect you from staying committed to something you may have changed feelings for. And it's okay to have changed values and beliefs. It's part of our evolution, it's part of growing. I'm sure everybody in here are watching this maybe liked something when they were 12 that they no longer like today. It's not that our 12-year-old self was wrong, we've just grown from it. And so go ahead and challenge it from time to time. Pick something you believe in and fight for it, stand up for it. And secondly, or lastly, be honest with yourself and others about your beliefs and stand up for them. Don't be afraid to stand by something that you believe in. So the fourth commandment is honor your father and mother. My parents especially used to like to tell me about this one. In school, we talked about how this commandment also extended to honoring our children and the family at large. And of course, this is a great, wonderful commandment to believe and follow in general. However, the coping skill that I pulled from this commandment is about the very general idea of respecting others. It's not only respecting our parents, not only respecting our children, but respecting everybody. Respecting others costs you nothing, while the damage of disrespecting others can cause all kinds of damage. So let's talk about that first. The damage of disrespect. So as a therapist, I just have to say, the negative impact of child abuse, domestic violence, and trauma, all gross forms of disrespect, are too lengthy for the purposes of this presentation or in my book. However, just in short, children with a history of child abuse are at a greater risk for a slew of problems, ranging from poor physical health, increased risk of chronic health conditions, injuries, accidents, chronic mental health conditions like borderline personality disorder, bipolar disorder, depression, anxiety, substance abuse, and incarceration. It's a laundry list of negative impacts from disrespect. One study performed by the National Survey of Child and Adolescent Wellbeing found on child abuse, 28% of kids with a history of abuse have a chronic health condition. Another study utilizing a trauma inventory known as the Adverse Childhood Experiences found that 58% of suicide attempts in women were connected to an adverse childhood experience. But that is not all. The physical and psychological warfare that abuse and trauma wreak on a person's mind are really unparalleled. Something else to keep in mind is the amount of money abuse and trauma cost taxpayers and the community at large. So not only is a child or an adult feeling so alone, but the CDC put out this report in 2008. The lifetime cost of child maltreatment and related fatalities in 1 year totaled $124 billion, which is just really shocking and sad, I think, not only because of the abuse, but the amount of money being bled out to then try to go fix or solve these problems that are all started from just disrespectful behavior. So it seems then that if we want to save our society and our kids and our community members, we have to start respecting others. So here are the benefits of respecting our community members. It increases positive feelings and emotions, good things. It improves your community and increases your sense of community. You're saying hi to your neighbor, he's saying hi back. It also increases our own levels of pride and self-respect. And this is partially true due to something called the cognitive triangle, which is something I'll be talking about right now. So the cognitive triangle is a foundational concept to appreciate in psychology and with how our actions are intimately connected to our feelings and our thoughts. So as you can see, the cognitive triangle consists of thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And I want you all to notice the double-headed arrows signifying that as soon as one of them is triggered, their sister components will also instantly be triggered. So in terms of disrespect and respecting our neighbors, let's go ahead and just do a little run through. So let's say you have a behavior. Let's say, I don't know, the neighbor waves to you and you're like, huh, and you don't wave back, and you're like, oh my God. Thought, that neighbor is so annoying. Why does he always wave to me? I clearly don't want to talk to him. That maybe makes me feel intruded on, or angry, or maybe even violated. Why are they talking to me? I don't want to talk to anybody. And then maybe my behaviors are more isolation, or more cold shoulder, which then again fuels the thoughts like, oh gosh, everybody is just so annoying. And then we're kind of on this negative downward spiral. Or we can save ourselves. Let's go back to behavior. The neighbor waves to us. We wave back, say hi. Maybe the thought is, oh, he's a nice guy. That makes me feel good about my community. If he likes me, maybe I'm a pretty likable guy. That makes me feel good. Now maybe I'm going out more and I'm waving hi to the neighbor myself, which makes me feel better and I have good thoughts. Like, wow, I'm a pretty good neighbor. I'm a pretty good person. And then the spiral just goes up and up and up. And so that's why the cognitive triangle and respecting others can actually influence our own mood and make us feel better about ourselves. So outside of saying hi to the neighbor, here are some other basic ideas to take away for how to apply this skill. So while honoring our father and mother is of course a great thing to do, don't stop there. Respect your kids, respect your neighbors, respect everybody you come in contact with. Disrespecting others will bring you no joy, while respecting others will increase your own levels of self-respect and pride. Number 2, respect your body and your spirit. If you're feeling sick, go to the doctor. Treat others like you would want to be treated. Again, the golden rule. Don't be violent to yourself, others, or the environment. Don't vandalize things. Don't lie. Don't gossip. Those are two ways of demonstrating a lot of disrespect. And so we can be respectful enough to tell the truth, to not be complicit with gossip. We're going to make ourselves feel better, kind of because of the cognitive triangle as well, because when we don't gossip, wow, I'm an honorable person. That was really good not to gossip. Now I feel better about myself, and we'll continue on this respectful path. So now we're going to move into number 5, thou shalt not kill. Again, this commandment as is also a pretty good rule to follow. So try not to kill people. Killing someone will bring you no happiness. You might think otherwise, but I promise it will bring you no happiness. The coping skill that I pulled from this commandment is not just about not killing people, but about honoring life. And this is a little bit different from respect. Respecting another person is with our actions. Not honoring life is more so a generalized skill of recognizing the precious, irreplaceable nature and amazing power that life is. And so that's what this skill is really all about. So some dangers of dishonoring life include it leads us to disenfranchisement, it leads us to ambivalence, it also is going to increase our connection with suicidal thoughts. If we don't think life is honorable or, special. It's going to have clear connections with, not believing that anything has a purpose. While honoring life is going to increase your own self-respect because you're part of that universal energy and you're in agreement with it. So it's also going to increase your self-control. You have free will. You're part of this world. I've got this. It's also going to increase our sense of purpose, which is a powerful influencer for our life satisfaction and our ability to be happy. So how to apply the skill of honoring life? Honestly, gardening. Gardening has been found through research to be a really great way of connecting with our environment, having control over something. It also gives us an opportunity to practice nurturing something else, which again is another skill that we can then apply to ourselves. To the same extent, go ahead and adopt a pet. Adopting a pet has been another foundational concept as an antidepressant, particularly. Again, that idea of nurturing life, honoring life as precious. Dogs especially get us out more. I'm a cat person, but it could be a guinea pig, it doesn't matter. Getting a pet so you can help nurture that life and connect with something else from the universe. Volunteering. Volunteering is going to be something I talk a lot about throughout this presentation. Go ahead and honor life that way. Assist a stranger in need. If we're on the bus, if we're walking across the street, if someone's pulling their trash cans in and they're struggling with that, go ahead and help them out. Don't be wasteful with your money or your food. Greet the morning with a smile and the moon with a good night. They're part of our world too. And lastly, go to a zoo, go to a planetarium, go see the pyramids if it's within your financial means. Allow yourself to be wowed by the world. The world is an incredible place, and so many of us spend so much time trying to be cool or not impressed. Allow yourself to be impressed. Allow yourself to be wowed. Alright, so number 6, thou shalt not commit adultery. Honestly, this was one of the commandments I got stuck on while I was writing this book. I think as a wife, I was like, this one's good. This one's good as is. This doesn't need to be altered. However, as I was looking into it, the one that I did end up pulling, because I actually had a couple of, I dived into the rabbit hole of what else it could be, and I finally landed on balance. And while the two may not seem connected, couldn't adultery just be seen as another form of indulgence in being out of balance? You already have a relationship, and yet you seek out more? I think that's an overindulgence. So yes, while the commandment warns us about the sins of adultery specifically, I generalized its sin of overindulgence in sex and relationships and love and attention to a general problem with overindulgence at large. And so now the cure for overindulgence is not necessarily the denial of pleasure or the removal of it, but it is about balance. And that is a coping skill that I pulled that we will be discussing about. And so before we dive into the benefits of balance, I wanted to first just demonstrate the dangers of overindulgence. And so first, let's talk about money. In general, us Americans are drowning in debt. For example, bankruptcy, to start, hit an all-time high in 2005 with over 2 million cases filed nationwide. 1 in 55 households filed for bankruptcy that year, while in 2018, it has gone down a little bit, down to 755,000. In California specifically, in 2011, California was the state with the largest number of bankruptcy claims, accounting for over 240,000 that year, and this accounted for 17% of all bankruptcies nationwide. Other facts about debt: on average, all households carry about $8,000 credit card balance, as well as our U.S. consumer debt right now is about $13.5 trillion. So we are a nation that's drowning in personal debt. So now let's go from money to food overindulgence. In 2016, the CDC reported that more than 1/3 of all Americans are diagnosed as obese, and obesity has a host of different health problems, including high blood pressure, heart disease, diabetes is really big where I'm from, cancer, gallbladder disease, a host of other problems, all because we overindulged. And going back to diabetes, in 2014, the CDC reported that 9.3% of Americans had diabetes. 9.3 does not necessarily seem like a huge number, so just let me say that's 29 million people. And this is clearly a growing problem. In 1958, the reported diabetes in this country was 0.93. And then that hiked up in 2000 to 4.4% of Americans. And today, we're at 9.3. So this is clearly a growing problem of that overindulgence with food. So now let's go into general addiction, drug and alcohol addiction specifically. In 2015, the National Institute of Health estimated that at least 10% of adults in the US have met criteria for drug use disorder at some point in their life. Sticking with addictions, in one study by the National Institute of Health in 2015, they concluded that similar to past research, the present study showed that people with drug use disorder were significantly more likely to have a broad range of psychiatric disorders, including mood, anxiety, post-traumatic stress, and personality disorders. Individuals with drug use disorder in the past year were 1.3 times as likely to experience clinical depression, 1.6 times more likely to have post-traumatic stress disorder, and 1.8 times as likely to have borderline personality disorder when compared to people who do not have a drug use disorder. So clearly, the association between overindulgence and feeling unsatisfied and unhappy in life is there. However, ignoring our needs isn't the answer. As we say here in LA, all work and no play make Johnny a dull boy. So what I'm saying is go out there, have fun, have some self-care, eat the cupcake, have the taco, get that gift for yourself, go on that vacation. Life is not about denying ourselves the pleasures of life, but it is just about balance. Not overindulging, not denying ourselves, but about balance and moderation. And so there are 3 basic rules for finding this balance. Number 1, stop being a victim of your id. If you have questions about what that means, I can answer that afterwards. Stop being controlled by your impulses and your fears. And lastly, start exercising your free will. One of my favorite authors that I've read is by Dr. Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning. In that book, he has an amazing quote about free will. Between stimulus and response, there is a space. And in that space is our power to choose our response. And in our response lies our growth and our freedom. And so while we are this amazing creature, us humans, we are at the top of the food chain, right? With our free will and our ability to speak, to be our responses with our intelligence, versus a low-form creature of just reacting. Let's embrace our top of the food chain title of being human by choosing our responses rather than being a victim of our impulses and overindulging and ruining our lives. This also brings me to something that I talk about in my book a lot. It's what I call my sacrifice and gain model. In terms of balance and trying to find that moderation, people who overindulge are trying to have it all, which never really works out. If we want something, we're typically going to have to sacrifice. If we want that expensive bag, we're going to have to sacrifice our money. If we want to get to that weight loss goal, we're going to have to sacrifice some of our favorite foods. If we want to get an education, we're probably going to have to sacrifice some money, some time. If we want to have anything valuable or worthwhile, we're probably going to have to make sacrifices along the way. If you want a good relationship, you're probably going to have to sacrifice your vulnerability. You're going to have to sacrifice a lot to be in an open, good relationship that's worthwhile having. And so the sacrifice and gain model, the basic idea is the more you sacrifice, the more you gain. The less you sacrifice, the less you gain. If you don't want to, get your weight loss goal met, hey, that's great. You don't have to sacrifice anything. You'll keep gaining weight. You'll not get any closer to your weight loss goal. You can apply the sacrifice and gain model to any goal that you're trying to achieve. What am I willing to sacrifice? For that is going to be very important to both achieve your goal as well as to not fall into stagnation. Sometimes when we don't sacrifice anything, we're just sitting there like, why aren't I getting any closer to my goal? Because you're not sacrificing possibly enough or anything to get that goal. Why can't I pass this class? Are you studying? Why can't I get in a relationship? Are you being honest and open in it? What is it? And thus, those who are unwilling to sacrifice anything will eventually lose everything, which is something I talk about in my book. If we're unwilling to sacrifice our pride, we're not going to have that relationship. If we're unwilling to sacrifice our time or money, we're probably not going to get that goal met. And so being courageous enough and to sacrifice that something to get our goals is really meaningful. So how to apply this coping skill of balance in our everyday life? If it's a problem for you, try to save money. However, if you have a lot of time off work, go on that vacation. I'll give you a great example of this. I was actually, in terms of balance, I'd really been working a lot over the summer to a point where I actually thought I was sick. I was really fatigued. I was pulling myself out of bed, just barely making it to work on time. I even made a doctor's appointment. And of course, the doctor couldn't see me for like 3 weeks. And so I was like, okay. Within that time, I went on vacation. It was a planned vacation. And I went on vacation for like 2 weeks. And I came back and I felt great. And then my phone reminded me that I have a doctor's appointment. I was like, well, I guess I should go. So I went and I talked to the doctor. And she was like, okay, well, we'll get some blood and we'll see what happens. And she called me about a week later. She's like, well, everything's fine. I was like, yeah, I know it's fine because I felt better before I even went to the appointment. So I finally had a vacation. I balanced some work with some fun, and I got back in balance. And so if you're feeling a little, fatigued, just ask yourself, am I working too much? And how can I remedy that? Exercise. Exercise in moderation, though. Eat when you are hungry. Eat a healthy diet as well. Get good sleep. Going back to that sacrifice and gain model. If you want to stay up late to watch your favorite show, to hang out with your friends, all right, you're going to be tired in the morning, but if that's a sacrifice that you're willing to make, or if you're really young, then that won't even be a problem for you. But for me, at least, it's going to be a sacrifice that I'm willing to make so that I can spend more time with my friends, for example. It's something I'm going to make on my own. And signs of imbalance will come up. So if you are out of balance, either your bank account's going to show it, your weight's going to show it, or you're just going to feel kind of fatigued or a little moody. All of those, let those be signs to you that maybe I need to have a reset. All right, so moving on to thou shalt not steal. Again, another seemingly obvious rule that needs to be followed in order for society to function. However, again, this skill is not necessarily about not stealing, because while not stealing will keep you, not incarcerated, for example, stealing is also going to keep you from your own happiness as well. And while not stealing is a good rule to follow and not getting incarcerated, the coping skill that I pulled from this commandment is about selflessness. So let's go into the reasons why stealing and selfishness are so dangerous for your own goals of being happy. Number one, stealing decreases the item's value. You go in and you steal a watch that's $50. You're at home now with the new watch. That watch isn't $50, is it? You just stole yourself something that's $0. And at least in our first world society, when we give gifts to people or ourselves, we say, oh my God, this is a really expensive gift. Not for yourself, you just gave something of zero value. And so it just kind of works into this thought process. Number 2, stealing hinders a person's ability to respect and value other people. If I'm a store owner and you just stole from me, that's not a lot of respect, is it? Stealing interferes with a person's basic understanding of money and hard work. When we don't appreciate work and how hard it is to get money for things, we increase our sense of entitlement, which makes us more prone to selfishness and anger and feeling more like a victim, thus pushing us even further away from happiness and peace. Selfishness decreases your value to society. We don't need thieves in society, and we don't need selfish people. So when you're stealing or when you're acting selfishly, you're making yourself less valuable to your community. And thus you're making yourself feel unwanted, because you probably are unwanted in society. You did it to yourself. Selfishness hinders your ability to respect and value others. Time and again, research confirms that one of the best routes to happiness are healthy, stable relationships. So if you struggle respecting and valuing others, it's going to compromise your ability to maintain those healthy, stable relationships. But there are 2 really big reasons why stealing and selfishness are really dangerous for you. You cannot steal or buy things that will make you happy. And because selfishness keeps you from being able to have the things that do make a person happy. And the things that make people happy, research finds, good relationships. Good relationships, love, friendship, family, health. You can't steal those things. All those things take sacrifice, hard work, patience, vulnerability, and courage. These are all the things that will truly add to your life. And when we're selfish, we're not going to keep that good relationship going. When we're selfish, we're not going to find love. Selfishness keeps us from having those things. It also kind of reminds me of the old saying, the things that truly make a person happy are not really things at all. So here are just some basic ways of how to be selfless in your everyday life. Increase your compassion towards others. Listen to others. That's a very compassionate thing to do. Be patient with others. Another very hard thing to do, but it's a very selfless and honorable thing to do. Practice charity and donate your time and money. Stop speeding. Stop speeding and compromising everybody else's safety. Remember that your actions have effects on other people. Arrive alive is what I always say. Nobody deserves to be in a car accident because you're late getting your mobile order from Starbucks. Nobody deserves to die because you're running late to the airport. Nobody deserves to lose a child because you're late for work. Think about how your everyday actions influence and majorly affect everybody else you don't even necessarily know. But you matter, and that's why your actions matter. And one way of practicing selflessness is to drive safely. Give up your seat on the bus. And lastly, volunteer. Like I said, volunteering is going to be a theme throughout this presentation. It's been considered a natural antidepressant for years. And then this 2017 article went as far as saying that the time has come for healthcare providers to prescribe and recommend such behaviors of volunteerism at sustainable levels, generally in the range of 2 hours per week. Now that, to me, is progress in the healthcare community. So the secret is selflessness, and kind of a play on the Gladstone quote, when the world can replace selfishness with selflessness, the world will know peace. Okay, moving right along. Number 8, thou shalt not bear false witness. This is one of the commandments with the most similar or obvious coping skill attached to the original commandment. My secret coping skill here is honesty, the very, new modern skill that we were talking about earlier. And so while this commandment is telling us not to lie, I too am encouraging us to practice honesty. In the book that I am working on, this is the shortest chapter. Why? Because of its clear association and power and benefits of living an honest life. I don't have to do much work here for this chapter. As a therapist, I advise people who are struggling with anxiety and depression to practice honesty at every chance they get. I have found that by and large, the fantasies that we construe in our minds are way worse than the reality of any situation. So let's go in and talk briefly about why lying keeps us from happiness. In short, lying increases our feelings of shame and guilt. Dr. Jarvis out of Boston, she used to talk about something she called the psychic cost of dishonesty. She wrote, "Dishonesty alienates ourselves from others and perpetuates the idea that something about ourselves is unacceptable and must be hidden. Therefore, dishonesty or lying perpetuates our feelings of shame and a belief that we are unacceptable. Honesty then nurtures that sense of self-acceptance." So lying keeps us from acceptance. Acceptance is a critical part of any healing and growth. Lying also increases the chaos in our world, and it makes our world even less predictable, which of course, struggling with anxiety, this is going to make it worse. Lying decreases our self-respect. Again, kind of going back to the example I gave earlier, if I like to think of myself as an honest person, or would like to think of myself as an honest person, and then I lie, I'm going to feel bad about myself. Number 5, lying increases our anxiety, primarily on the if we get caught thought. Shakespeare said it all. Oh, what a tangled web we weave when trying to deceive. It was accurate back then, and it's accurate today. Lying is going to increase our anxieties. Also, lying keeps our problems alive longer. When we lie about the problem is not going to get solved. My advice, try to correct a problem before it gets too overwhelming to solve. We see this a lot often even in schools. Let's say we have a college student who's struggling in math. He goes to class, he sits there, he takes notes, but he doesn't understand. But he doesn't talk to the teacher, he doesn't talk to the TA. He doesn't ask anybody else for help. And so he's moving along, he fails the first test. Okay, this is fine. I'm just gonna, try to do more next time. Then the next test comes along and he fails it again. Now it's past ad withdrawal time. Now he's in real trouble. And now it's the final. And now he failed again. Now he really failed the test. Now he's in a big problem. Now his parents are gonna be told. Now he has to retake the class. Now it's a big old problem. All because 4 months ago, he never went up to the professor, "Hey, I don't understand." Or even go see his guidance counselor, "Hey, I don't think this is going to be a good class for me." Trying to solve the problem, as soon as you recognize it, with honesty, it's going to be the way out. So why honesty is the best policy, going back to some old school colloquialisms. It helps us with our self-respect, helps us with acceptance, and it increases our ability to solve problems. All problems start being corrected with honesty. From problems within our own behaviors, from problems within our relationships to work, school, we have to know the facts and be honest in order to make any changes. Lying about the problems don't take them away or get any better, just like with the school example I just gave. Sorry. Honesty also protects us from shame. Believe it or not, so many of my patients say they've never told anybody out of this shame and guilt feeling of being a victim of something. But the healing process always starts with honesty. What did happen? Let's talk about it. So here are some ways of applying honesty as a coping skill in our everyday life. Be upfront as soon as possible. "Hey boss, I don't know that program." "Hey boss, you asked me if I can have this done by Friday. I can't. That's not going to happen." Whatever it is, be upfront as soon as possible. Be courageous and vulnerable with the hard truth. The truth shall set you free. Remember that you would want to be told the truth and not lied to, going back to the golden rule. And lastly, I want you to start thinking of honesty as a way of solving a problem, like a tool, not as something scary, but just this is how I need to solve this problem. Very just rational that way. I found that can be really helpful. All right, so moving on to number 9. Thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. So when I was going into what this possible coping skill could be, I went into looking at, well, what does that word covet really mean? This is a very old school word. So covet is defined as to yearn, to possess, or to have something. And so then when you read the commandment with just modern language, thou shalt not want to possess thy neighbor's wife. Off the bat, that already sounds really bad and an obvious thing not to do. So while yearning to possess something is not necessarily a bad thing, it does become a problem when we want things that we cannot have, such as a human being or other people's things. So if we decide to go ahead and try to possess a person, several serious things will happen, mainly that of a huge boundary violation. So we're going to be talking about boundaries for this chapter. So, what are boundaries? By definition, a boundary is anything that marks the limits of a thing. And so this chapter is going to be talking about both psychological boundaries as well as physical boundaries. But no matter what boundary you're talking about, boundaries all serve one primary purpose. And that purpose is your safety. And so if we're longing for our neighbor's partner, we are crossing all kinds of unhealthy boundaries and possibly our safety. So let's go in to talk about features of individuals who have both healthy and unhealthy boundaries. So people with unhealthy boundaries, these people typically demonstrate a lot of, I guess you could call them red flags. Low self-esteem. Individuals with poor boundaries or unhealthy boundaries typically have low self-esteem. They tend to be dishonest or at least unclear. People who don't have very clear or good boundaries won't necessarily say what their boundaries are out of feeling of being rejected. So rather than saying, hey, it's not okay to wear shoes in here, it's, well, you can take your shoes off if you like. Very unclear and very different message from take your shoes off when you enter my house. And so a lot of people with poor self-esteem have poor boundaries and then also lead to poor expectation management and poor boundary delivery. It's all like a big package deal. Another typical characteristic of people with poor boundaries is they tend to brew resentment and feeling of being used and unappreciated. And it's typically because they typically are used and unappreciated. People who have poor boundaries, because of that difficulty with setting boundaries, so even with well, I really want people to take their shoes off before they enter my house, but I don't feel comfortable saying, please take your shoes off. Gosh, there comes in Robert with his shoes in their mind, and they're just like eating them alive in their mind. That guy just comes into my house with his shoes on. He doesn't even care about me. Now I have to clean. He doesn't even care that I have to clean this mess because he just won't take his shoes off. Meanwhile, Robert never knew that you wanted your shoes off. And so there's this huge, and they feel thus violated against, all because of those poor expectation management there. People with unhealthy boundaries typically will be more violent. And they also tend to become victims or perpetrators of enmeshment and codependency. And people with unhealthy boundaries often typically objectify others. And so what that means in everyday language is, if I'm a person with unhealthy boundaries, and I'm going to treat you like an object. So objects don't have feelings or goals or things they want to do in that day. They don't have a family. Objects are made for us. This podium is holding my computer right now. I didn't ask it if it's okay if it can hold my computer. I just made it hold my computer because it's an object. Versus if it was a person, of course I would ask, hey, would you mind holding my computer? I know it might get heavy after a while, so maybe we can come up with some arrangement. I would want to think about their feelings before asking them a request. People with a lot of poor boundaries will violate your humanity and make you more into an object rather than seeing your spirit and your humanity. Plus, on the alternative, individuals with healthy boundaries typically have high self-esteem, and they are very clear with what they want and their expectations of you. So a person who had that, shoe-wearing friend, they'd be like, oh, hey, Rob, no, take your shoes off. I don't like it when people wear shoes in my house. They make it very clear. People with healthy boundaries know how to say yes when they need to, and they know how to say no when they need to, which is a very, very important part of safety requirements. People with healthy boundaries, they're able to maintain their individuality while being with and respecting the other person's humanhood. And lastly, people with healthy boundaries see people as people and not as objects. So, boundaries in love. There are no rules in love and war, perhaps, but there are consequences. Trying to possess a person is an example of a very unhealthy relationship with poor boundaries. Even trying to break up a relationship because you want them, that's again another boundary violation. If they want to be with you, they'll be with you. If you're making all these courageous efforts to break up a relationship, you're going on social media and you're talking gossip all to try to ruin a relationship, that's a huge boundary violation. Again, a person is never something to be won or stolen. A relationship with healthy boundaries is mutual and respectful. So how to apply boundaries in our everyday life? Know what your personal preferences for boundaries are, or if you want them to be. If you maybe struggle with boundaries, I would like you to go home tonight and think about, how do I want to be treated? How do I want to be talked to? And then make your boundaries known as clearly as possible to everyone. This helps manage expectations of how you want to be treated. Have no tolerance for boundary violators. If a person violates your boundaries once, they're going to do it again. Number 2, learn how to say yes and no if that's something you struggle with. Something I say often in my practice is learning how to say no is something you need to know. This will help you with your safety. Hey, you want to go down that dark alley with me? Knowing how to say no might save your life. Or knowing how to say yes might save your life someday. So regardless of boundaries in general, learning how to say yes and no is a very important life skill to acquire. Tell yourself that you are worthy of safety and respect. That thought, that mantra, if you will help you with protecting your boundaries. And lastly, respect other people's boundaries as well. If you do it for them, they'll typically mirror it and do it for you. So, if you go over to Rob's house and he asks you to take your shoes off, take your shoes off. And so maybe when he's at your house, he'll remember that, oh, she likes that role too. She wants that same kind of respect that I gave her earlier. And so then lastly, number 10, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's things. So as mentioned in chapter 9, coveting is defined as to yearn to possess, to have something. And so in chapter 9, we discuss the dangers of yearning to possess someone. In this chapter, we will be discussing the dangers of yearning to possess other people's things. And if something is possessed by someone already, we therefore cannot have it. That would be in conflict with Commandment 7, thou shalt not steal. And so then what do we do with this problem? We need to exercise not yearning for the things that we don't have, but gratitude for the things we do have. And that's what we'll be talking about for the rest of the presentation. So why coveting can be dangerous? So there's a reason envy is considered one of the 7 deadly sins in the Catholic Church. Not only is envy a deadly sin against the Catholic Church, but it's also a deadly sin against your own ability to be happy. Wanting something that somebody else already owns breeds envy. Envy is a very unhealthy place to stay for too long. Envy or jealousy can lead to anger, greed, hatred, entitlement, resentfulness, and selfishness. And to quote the great Jedi Master, anger, fear, aggression, the dark side they are. Once you start down the dark path forever, it will dominate your destiny. Great words by a great man, or whatever he was. Very wise words, nevertheless. The takeaway message, though, is a person cannot be happy if they are jealous. It's just not possible. If you are a jealous person yearning for things, you are an unhappy person. And one reason this is true is because it keeps you from having a genuine relationship with the person or people you are jealous of. Oh, you got a new car, how great for you. It's very false, it's disingenuous, and tying into the cognitive triangle, it's going to fuel your feelings of resentment and maybe possibly act differently towards that friend of yours. If you're a jealous partner, for example, this suggests that you struggle with trust issues, which makes it substantially more difficult to have a happy, honest, stable relationship with someone. And again, what's one of the biggest factors in living a happy, healthy life? Good relationships. So jealousy is going to negatively impact you on that goal. Again, jealous people, envious people are unhappy people. And if you are focused on the things other people have, or get caught up on the thoughts of how unfair the world is, you are blinding yourself from seeing all the gifts and opportunities that you do have. And so that idea that we get caught up in our thought process of how unfair the world is, I'm going to bravely step into something that my book and I dive into. So before we go any further, we need to review a very serious concept that nobody really wants to say or hear. But learning this life lesson of not coveting can really be summed up in 3 little words. Life isn't fair. We want to believe it is fair. And everybody says, oh my God, I totally know that life isn't fair. But I challenge that. I challenge the idea that everybody actually thinks that life is fair. But we have to accept it. And let me explain why it's such an important concept to discuss in this context of gratitude. So much pain and suffering in our lives comes from our perspective, right? What we believe. And the expectations that we have for ourselves and others, our future. And all of those expectations and beliefs set us up for the opportunities for either feeling happy and appreciated or for feeling victimized. We either set ourselves up for failure or for success. It's all up to us. So here it is. If we believe or expect that life is supposed to be fair, which is a should be fair, we'll be setting ourselves up for a lot of anger and disappointment. Because for things to be expected to be fair implies that we believe that the world, universe, and God functions under a subscribed set of agreed-upon rules and laws, which we know it does not. Outside of the laws of math and physics, there are no rules and laws or personal plans that the universe follows. And I appreciate how scary this realization is, but it is a reality of life for everyone, not just you. Life, God, the universe, never promised you that it was a fair place. So why are you expecting it to be a fair place? To whine about how unfair life is implies that you expected it to be fair, and that was our first mistake. To expect it to be fair implies that you believe life functions by some sort of agreed upon rules between you and the universe. And to believe in that implies that you believe that the world is a just and predictable place. And the world is many things, but just and predictable, it is not. Okay, so let's all take a big breath. I know it's kind of a lot to take in. And so, how do we move forward with this terrifying idea that there are no rules in the world? Number 1, acceptance. You don't yell at the sun for being bright, and you don't yell at the rain for being wet. So why are we yelling at the world for being unfair? The sun is bright, the rain is wet, and life is unfair. So wear sunglasses, buy an umbrella, and embrace that the world owes you nothing except for gravity and the other laws of motion. It is only when we have learned how to accept what is that we can stop fighting for fantasies that never will be. Release yourself from entitlements of any kind. Remember that the world never promised you anything, so stop acting like you are entitled to a fair world. People can promise you things. and they should follow up on those promises. But the world never promised you anything. And 3, replace any jealousy for things you don't have with gratitude for the things you do have. Once we can do this, we can start being grateful for things, and then we can be happy. Learning how to be grateful will be one of the most important skills you ever learn, for I believe that a person can never be happy without gratitude. So what is gratitude? Here's the definition. Gratitude is just the experience of appreciating the positive aspects in life. Gratitude is considered a way of showing our appreciation or thankfulness for something or someone. Research has found that feelings of gratitude have been associated with increased subjective well-being. And one researcher even concluded that gratitude is one of the 4 necessary factors for obtaining happiness. Additional research has concluded that gratitude is considered an important source of human strength in achieving and maintaining good mental health. Other psychological researchers have determined that implanting gratitude exercises can lead to increases in reported levels of happiness. It could go on, but I think you get the point. Gratitude is a great way of implanting more happiness into our everyday lives. But gratitude does more than just reminding us of all the good things that we have or that have happened to us. Gratitude also embraces the opportunity to welcome luck or blessings in the world. If the world isn't a fair place, truth, but I have a lot of good things, or a lot of good things have happened to me, how did I get so lucky? How did I get so fortunate? This line of thinking then opens us up to this thought. Although the world isn't a fair place, maybe it isn't out to get me, which can be very comforting. All right, so how do we apply gratitude in our everyday life? Number 1, I encourage so many people to start gratitude box exercises. I have actually a whole drawer or a shelf of empty shoe boxes in my office to give to clients to start a gratitude box. So what a gratitude box exercise is, it's basically just a collection of little sheets of paper that have reminders of gratitude. The way I do it, and you can add your own spirit to it, but the way I do it is about 3 or 5 times a week, I'll get out a little note card, tear it in half, it can be that small, and it'll say, August 1st, I got a good parking lot at my job. For me, finding a good parking space makes me really happy, something I appreciate. And so I would write that on my card, and I would put it in my box. Maybe on August 5th, my mom sent me a really nice text message that made me feel good. I'll write that on there, put it in my box. August 10th, my husband surprised me with breakfast on the table. Really appreciated it. All these things seem small, don't they? What I see a lot in my own practice is people come in and they globalize, they use catastrophic language, they use absolute language. Nothing good ever happens to me. I'm like, nothing ever? My God, how are you alive? Like, you didn't get in a car accident today? You have legs that walked you in here? Or like, are you on a gurney? Like, nothing good ever happens to you? Let's take a look at this. I was actually encouraging one of my clients to do this for a while, and eventually I was just like, look, I see you enough. Can I just do your own gratitude box for you? I'll write it down. I'll ask you if I can write it down. I'll put it in your box, and then we can review it later. And she was like, okay, sure. And so she's in my office after like maybe 6 months of doing this, and she says again something very dramatic. Oh, well, you know me, nothing good ever happens. I was like, well, let's look into that. And I pulled out this little shoe box. And I was like, oh, wow, it said on January 8th, you went karaokeing with your friends. Oh, yeah, well, that was nice. I'm like, all right, and then on this date, you said that you got together with your family and had a barbecue, and that was really good. Okay, well, that was good too. And then we just keep reviewing it, challenging those absolute thoughts that keep us from gratitude. And if you struggle with the gratitude box exercise, 2 thoughts: make it fun. I have a box at home. It's full of like glitter and stuff, and it's very big. It says the happy box. What I do for it, so I do this 3 or 5 times a week, and on January 1st, I open up the box and I look through all of the year of things that I was grateful for. And it's become this little kind of tradition in our house that we all review all the great things that happened last year to start the new year off. If you're not into that, they also even sell now gratitude journals, and they have every day, but you can just do this on your home journal. You don't need to buy anything fancy. The gratitude box can also be as fancy or as simple as you want, but the point of it is to look through it, to remember it, write it down, put it in the box or in your journal, and then review it. I encourage my clients who struggle with anxiety and depression especially to review the box every month. So just to give you an idea of how to do the gratitude box exercise. Number 2, say thank you as often as possible to people, animals, plants, and the world. If somebody opens the door for you, say thank you. If somebody did something significant for you, say thank you. If your dog comes up to you and wiggles his tail, say, oh, thanks, buddy. Practice gratitude whenever you can. As I said earlier, parking, typically I have to park in the way back dirt lot. I've ruined so many heels because of this predicament of mine. And so when I do happen to find a good parking space on pavement, I always do this simple little thing. I just put my hands up and say thank you. And I park and I go into work. It doesn't need to be a big thing, just something to say thank you, that you're happy that something happened. Again, donate your time, money, resources to a cause that you feel especially close to. If somebody in your family has a particular health disorder, give to that cause if you feel connected to it. If you lost somebody in a drunk driving accident, consider giving your time or money to maybe Mothers Against Drunk Driving. Connect with a cause, and then you can be grateful that it hasn't happened to you, perhaps. Number 4, recognize how luck, fortune, and fate has positively impacted your life. This could even go back to my parking exercise, but even more, even bigger than that. For example, most of us don't have arranged marriages anymore. Most of us meet our partners by chance, right? Maybe we met at the bar, maybe we met in class, maybe we met at a party, through mutual friends. But overall, nobody orchestrated probably one of the most significant days of your life, meeting your significant other. To give it into fate or to God or to the universe connects you more with that thought of, while the world isn't a fair place, maybe it's not out to get me, which can make the world seem a little bit more hospitable than just life isn't fair, but it's not out to get me. It does do some great things. And lastly, every night, even if you don't do the gratitude box exercise, even if you don't do the gratitude journal, ask yourself every night to name one thing that you are grateful for today. Maybe it's something small. Maybe you had a chance to finally watch that movie you wanted to do. Or maybe it's something big. I'm so glad I still have my vision today. I'm so glad that my back doesn't hurt today. I'm so grateful that I have my relatives still in my life. From big to small, practicing gratitude will increase your own levels of happiness. So, while the world is full of darkness and unpredictability, it is also full of unimaginable possibilities of hope, healing, and happiness. Gratitude for what you already have is key on anybody's search for happiness. So, these are the 10 commandments or the 10 coping skills that we just reviewed. And as we can see, happiness is within your grasp. You deserve it. You can achieve it. It's right there waiting for you. And with that, that concludes the presentation. If you'd like to read more, here's my Twitter handle for Dr. C.F. Martin. And here's my webpage, drcfmartin.com. I'd also just like to say that if you'd like to go there, the first 3 chapters of my book are up and ready for you to view, free of charge. So please do go visit the website if you'd like to read more about that. And that is it. Thank you very much. Any questions?